In 1897, the renowned Pre-Raphaelite artist Edward Burne-Jones wrote excitedly, "I've met with two geniuses. Of course there's no knowing if anything may come of it, but they might be a great comfort in the future. They're English, they're boys of 14, they're twins, and one's called Teddy and the other Maurice. And one's an idealist and the other's a realist. They've got every equipment for being very great artists indeed." The twins, Edward Julius and Charles Maurice Detmold, had been born in 1883, and when Burne-Jones met them, had recently become among the youngest people ever to exhibit their work at the Royal Academy. They came from an artistic and slightly eccentric background. Their grandfather, Julius Detmold, was a merchant who had migrated from Germany to England, while their paternal grandmother, Matilda, was English. Julius and Matilda had a large family of children, but don't seem to have married because Matilda had earlier escaped from a previous unhappy marriage. The couple's eldest son, Henry Edward Detmold, the twins' uncle, studied art in Paris and became part of a colony of artists based at Newlyn in Cornwall. He had an important influence on the nephews' lives, more perhaps than their own father, Edward Detmold Sr., who was absent from the family for much of their childhood, moving restlessly from one unsuccessful business venture to another. The twins' mother, Mary Agnes Detmold, is an enigma. She seems to have been the strong centre of the household, but her origins are unknown. She was fostered and brought up by the doctor and polymath Edward Barton Schuldum and his wife Elizabeth, who were also key figures in the Detmold twins' lives. Edward Schuldum was a close friend of Burne-Jones and also of the writer Lewis Carroll. He was a pioneer of homeopathy, an amateur artist and poet, and a collector of Japanese and Chinese art. His collection introduced Edward and Maurice Detmold to the Japanese woodblock prints, which were then enormously popular in Europe and which shaped the twins' artistic style. The two boys worked almost as one. They lived with the Schuldums, their mother Mary Detmold, and their older sister Nora, first in Putney and then in Hampstead. But they spent hours together in London Zoo and sometimes further away in places like Arundel Park, observing the animals which were their favourite artistic subjects. They mastered the art of etching and acquired their own printing press. And in 1899, the publisher Dent issued their Pictures from Birdland, a series of Japanese-inspired lithographs accompanied by poems written by Edward Schuldum. Their next large project was a highly acclaimed set of painted illustrations for Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, which were published first as a folio of pictures and then in 1908 in book form. Here the twins began to combine their fascination with animals with imagined scenes of Oriental architecture. By the time that Edward and Maurice were in their early 20s, they and their mother had moved out of the Schuldums' house and were living nearby in Hampstead, in the midst of a little colony of artists. Their neighbours included the Dutch-born painters Willem Broekman and Anton van Unroy. They were continuing to experiment with painting and etching. Maurice Detmold's last known work was a sketch for an ambitious etching of the mythical winged horse Pegasus. By the beginning of 1908, though, perhaps because of the difficulty of earning a living as professional artists, they were back living with the Schuldums once again. As they had done since childhood, the whole household regularly went on holiday together to the area of rural Sussex around the village of Ditchling. During the Easter holiday period in 1908, they were due to go to Sussex again for an extended stay. But they had been looking after some cats and were concerned that the cats would stray and starve during their absence in Sussex. So Maurice, who had done a similar task before, was given chloroform to put the cats down. He did this, but then used the chloroform on himself, taking his own life on the 9th of April 1908. The underlying reasons for his suicide remain mysterious. He left a note which read, "This is not the end of a life. I have expressed through my physical means all that they are capable of expressing, and I am about to lay them aside." The impact of his death on his twin Edward can barely be imagined. The twins' friend and mentor, the art critic Campbell Dodgson, observed that, even in thought, the brothers seemed nearer to one another than two ordinary beings, and one mind knew intuitively the workings of the other. Edward Detmold's response was to throw himself more passionately than ever into his work, almost as though he now had to live and create for his lost brother as well as for himself. The year after Maurice's death, he published his illustrations to the Fables of Aesop, the first of an astonishing volume of published work that was to appear over the next 5 years. Edward Detmold was embarking alone on a new phase of creativity. But it was a phase that was to be disrupted by the global convulsions of the First World War. And Detmold's wartime experiences, together with the death of his brother, were to become the defining forces that shaped his view of the world.